Close on Sunday. You my Chick-fil-A. Close on Sunday. With a lemonade. Ooh. Hello everyone, this is Dick Lucas, host of the No Gradient podcast. This is Shooting from the Hip number 3. It is March 8th, 2020. It is a Sunday. It is in the morning, 9:30ish something a.m. Getting this to you before the week starts, right in the middle of COVID-19. Everyone relax, we're all good. Take some precaution, but don't lose your head. I'm in Durham, North Carolina, in the woods, in the middle of the... No, just kidding. There's a bunch of houses on the other side, but I thought this shot was chiller. Okay, so just a quick... now we're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19, just some of the stuff I've been reading on it, some recommendations on how to stay informed, how COVID-19 relates to the markets. I think there's a lot of interesting things to look at when there's any major event. How the market responds is always super interesting. A lot of records these past couple weeks, so we'll take a look at those. A little riff on Bernie Sanders. I know some of you might be feeling sad. Your guy didn't do so well on Super Tuesday. He still might get the nomination. I think Nate Silver said he's got a 1 in 35 chance at this point. But it's looking like he won't. So we'll talk a little bit about why I think that's a good thing. And we got 4 predictions for you. Talk a little bit about some good things coming out of COVID-19 from thoughts by Peter Zeihan, who I've talked about on the show before. So we got some good stuff for you today. Some blockchain stuff. Always got to sprinkle in some blockchain stuff. Also, if you want me to talk about something, there's a little way to get you. If you want to recommend a topic you want me to riff on, if I know nothing about it, I'm not going to touch it. But if it's something that it's kind of in my wheelhouse, or things that I regularly read about, I'm happy to touch on it. I'll tell you this though: get the podcast out there, tweet about it. Fucking LinkedIn. I share this on LinkedIn. No one gives a shit. Reddit. Fucking social media. Shout out the podcast. Let the homies know. Let people know if you think this is helpful. Shout out, and then hit me up and say, "Yo, shout out. Can you cover X topic?" So you do a little social media. I do a little cover the topic you want. Or better yet, hit me up first. See if I'm going to cover the topic, because maybe I won't cover it because I know nothing about it and I'm not frankly interested. Okay, another thing. I'm still experimenting with Shooting from the Hip. I really only want to talk about stuff I'm interested in. The last Shooting from the Hip number 2, I kind of build it as covering world news, U.S. news, finance, blah, blah, blah. The reality is that's disingenuous because I'm not covering world news, U.S. news. I'm covering some stuff that I happen to be interested in that fall under those categories. So this isn't the catch-all podcast for you. This isn't Last Week Tonight. I'm going to talk about things I'm interested in, things I think I know a thing or two about. And I try not to... I really try not to make, sweeping statements, rather really declarative statements on things that I'm not sure of. So if I'm a 51% sure of something, 60% sure of something, 70% sure of something, I'm not gonna be like, this thing is X. I'm really going for the low hanging fruit. What are the things I know for sure? Let's talk about those things, or at least I think I know for sure. And also, if I'm wrong about something, I will make an effort. Let me know. Please reach out if you say, no, this was wrong. I will make an effort. I will correct it in the next podcast episode, Shooting from the Hip, and I'll add it to the show notes if it's something that needs correcting. Because I'm out here. I want to be accurate, but the reality is I'm going to be wrong about some things. There's going to be things I retract. No gradient retracts. There's already a couple things that I've posted that I've retracted. I'm going to keep those things up there for posterity's sake. But that's also why we do the predictions at No Gradient. Hold ourselves accountable. Listen, we're all in this whole process together of trying to figure out the world, right? It's complex. People say things about it. I'm saying things about it. I want it to be clear to the viewers when I'm right about something, when I'm wrong about something. We track all those predictions. So I think I've got about 95 predictions, 5 more for you today total. 33% hit rate. The vast majority, I think like 75, haven't resolved yet. So a lot of these go out a few decades. So in about 30 years, we're going to kind of see if some of the shit I've been saying is correct, and at least we'll be able to say whether I know what I'm talking about. Unlike a lot of these pundits out here. Okay, so that's the quick intro, and now let's get right into it. So first things first, as a member of the public media community. Okay, here, just straight up, here is the most important thing you need to know about this COVID-19 stuff. This is everything else I'm going to say after this is all kind of fun and interesting, but here's what you got to do. And this is from the CDC, okay? Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue, then throw the tissue in the trash. Clean and disinfect the frequently touched objects and surfaces using a regular household cleaning. CDC does not recommend that people who are well wear a face mask to protect themselves from respiratory diseases, including COVID-19. Face masks should be used by people who show symptoms of COVID-19 to help prevent the spread of the disease to others. The use of face masks is also crucial for health workers and people who are taking care of someone in close settings, at home or in a healthcare facility. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after going to the bathroom, before eating, and after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. If soap and water are not readily available, so again, soap and water, number one. All this Purell bullshit, soap and water is still the best thing, okay? It's like your mammy taught you in 3rd grade, okay? Soap and water. This Purell on the backpacks, the alcohol, come on, relax. I'm pretty sure, it's not that chill. In fact, the CDC doesn't even recommend it. So if you are going to use, if the soap and water is not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. Always wash hands with soap and water if hands are visibly dirty. So wash your hands, people. If you're sick, stay indoors. Face mask, if you have it, maybe get it, but just wash the hands and be smart. So that's the I think the single thing. The biggest lever you can pull right now. The biggest lever you can pull is not to freak out and just keep reading, read. Just do the little things. You probably don't want to go in big groups. A lot of things are getting canceled, and I think that makes sense as a precaution because we still don't know what the deal is with this COVID-19. We're still trying to figure it out. And also people that are susceptible to this. You might be a young, healthy adult, but wash your fucking hands because you might get your Grammy sick, or you might get someone else's Grammy sick because you didn't wash your. I was in the bathroom the other day. Yesterday, was at some arts thing. Yeah, I was walking around looking at the local art scene in Durham. I saw some guy walk out without washing his hands. Now, I hardly ever wash my hands until COVID-19 hit. I'll be straight up on that, unless I'm going taking a poopy. Okay, I'll be straight up. If I'm going in to take a whiz, I whiz all the time. Come on, let's relax. I'm not going to wash my hands every time. It dries my hands out. It's the whole thing. Your boy's doing it now. I'm doing my part, though. I'm all talk. I haven't gotten the flu shot, which I should probably still get. Yeah, this guy walked out of the bathroom without washing his hands. There's some older people around at this art scene. I'm like, bruh, what's the etiquette on that? Do you say like, bro, the whole national emergency, international emergency, can you wash their hands? Like, you don't want to be a dick, but it's like, come on, dude, like, wash your fucking hands. Yeah, wash your hands, people. Okay, so there's this publication called Our World in Data. They cover a lot of cool stuff. Basically a data repository of all these things, everything you could possibly want to know about, kind of where the world's been, where it's going in terms of, numbers, right? Infant mortality, education, GDP, financial freedom, blah, blah, blah. It's got everything. It's all open source, and it's an amazing repository of information. I fucking love it. I don't donate to it yet. I got to start, honestly. It's a really cool publication headed by Max Roser, I think, and I think Oxford has something to do with it. I think they were working there. Anyway, they have a really cool, I think it's the best single source, single page of, information to stay updated on coronavirus. So excuse me, COVID-19 is the official name. So anyway, I'll link that in the show notes. I'll link all this stuff in the show notes. So you can link to all this. Don't worry about writing this shit down. It'll all be in the show notes. Okay, so anyway, it had a lot of helpful information where I pulled a lot of this stuff from. So a couple things. The disease is called COVID-19. The virus is called severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2. So viruses and the diseases they cause often have different names. For example, HIV is the virus. The cause that causes AIDS, right? So there's two separate names for different things, for the virus and the disease. So, which I did not know that. A little fun fact for you. So, so a couple other things. The majority of people, the symptoms are mild and in some cases similar to the common flu, and an epidemic of the same disease can cause. Okay, so yeah, it's important. So symptoms can be mild and in some cases common to the flu, but an epidemic of the same disease can cause a very high number of deaths. So just because a lot of the people you get it, it's over in 2 weeks, doesn't mean it can't kill a lot of people. And it's looking like the early data is showing that this, I think we can conclusively say at this point it's killing more people than the flu. So yes, if you're young, you're healthy. 2 weeks, I'm a millennial, I don't care about anything, I'll be healthy. What about your Grammy or your Grampy? So think of that. So just because it, it's not going to hit most people hard doesn't mean really, from what I can tell, doesn't have anything to do with the fatality rate. It can still be super high, and what it's looking like is it's higher now. So the incubation period for this is 5 to 6 days, but can vary widely. So incubation period is how long it takes before you show symptoms, I believe. We might need to Google that, actually. Yeah, I should know what that is. Yeah, 5 to 6 days, but can vary wildly, 1 to 14 days. Yeah, that's what that incubation period is. So typically 5 to 6 days, can vary wildly between 1 to 14 days. There's even a case of 27 days. So 27 days, they got the virus. It took them 27 days to show symptoms. So it's just something to think about. Also, for mild cases, it's approximately it lasts a couple weeks. But for severe and critical cases, it's 3 to 6 weeks. And some people have died. It's taken 8 weeks. So they started showing symptoms after 2 weeks and died after 8 weeks. So these are just some what we know, what we're gleaning from the info so far. Again, this is all on our world and data. So the case fatality rate, also called the CFR, the total number of deaths from a disease divided by the number of confirmed cases. The data on this is still getting fleshed out, but it's safe to say it's significantly higher than the flu. So Ebola, to put in perspective, Ebola was about 50%, maybe a little under. So that was super deadly. This is an Ebola status, and it hasn't spread anywhere like Ebola. Ebola was mostly contained. And the seasonal flu is about 0.1% fatality rate. So if people that get it, 0.1% will die because of it. I think at this point it's safe to say I think the biggest disruption, at least right now, the biggest disruption is not the actual disease, not actual COVID-19. It's a disruption caused by, Italy just announced they're fucking shutting down northern Italy, a big chunk. It's a disruption caused to travel, businesses, stuff like that, which is no small thing. And we should be doing these things. But I think right now it's safe to say that is most people are going to be affected due to that, at least right now. So Howard Marks released a memo. Damn, what is it called? I think it's something like Who Knows. Again, this is shooting from the hip. I have the notes here. I'm not Googling shit while I do it. I have my notes here. But some things I'm going to forget, but that's why I linked to things. You can look at it yourself. But Howard Marks releases a memo about every quarter. He's an investor based out of Los Angeles, Oak Tree Capital. He's a cobra. I love Howard Marks. I look forward to his memo that he puts out. Every time it hits the scene, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, let's do this. I love reading it. It's always like a 9-page PDF or something. You feel like you're, you feel very academic. You download the PDF on your computer, and or you print it out like a beast. So he's a really I love listening to his take. He mostly, he manages people's money, right? So he does have a certain perspective on this, mostly a financial perspective, but he's a level-headed guy. I love level-headed people. And he takes time to write these things. He writes them out, and he gives you his take. So now I'm going to give you some stuff regarding COVID-19 and how it relates to the market. So what have the markets been doing the past couple weeks? What does he see as the forecast? So first things first, and I love this guy because he admits what he doesn't know. Right off the bat, he says, well, excuse me, this is at the end, towards the end of it, but I'm going to start off with, he says, will stocks decline in the coming days, weeks, months? This is the wrong question to ask, primarily because it is entirely unanswerable. Who the fuck knows? I preach that a lot on this show. You don't know what the markets are going to do, okay? Don't time the markets. Don't touch your 401k. Don't touch your IRA. Don't do anything. Stick to your plan. Stick to the investment plan that you made when you were calm. And if you don't have one, search no gradient lowest hanging fruit. I talk a little bit about some of this stuff. I always feel like a snake oil salesman. I would say, I'll talk about how to get rich. I always feel like I'm selling people trying to scam them because only people that are scamming you are going to say shit like that. But no, I'm just talking about the thing. I'm just talking about stick to the plan, buy the market, don't buy individual stocks unless you want to have a little fun, but don't buy it because you think you're going to make money. Most investors are in it for the long term, especially young folks. You're in it for at least 20, 25 years, right? So don't worry about the couple, don't worry about the short-term swings. Stay the course. And if you're trying to, I don't want to stay the course because I'm trying to, buy the dip, sell high, buy low. that has shown to not actually make you any money, because you don't know how low it's going to go and you don't know when it's going to start going up. So you can get your money out of the market, put it into cash, and then, but for all you know, there's going to be a huge swing. There's been some huge swings. We're going to talk about that. So point is, it's unanswerable. Okay, so I'm going to go through some fast facts on all this shit based on his memo, Howard Marks' memo. So this is him. This is him here. Okay, so Monday, March 2nd and Wednesday, March 4th were the two biggest gains in the history of the S&P 500, not percent gains and point gains, 136 and 126 respectively in one day. So it's about 4.5% on, let's see, March 2nd. So biggest gains in history. So when I talk about, oh, people, you're taking your money, put them on the sidelines, convert it to cash, you're going to miss out on potential huge gains. Just leave your money in the market, let it sit. Okay. So the probability of occurrence of with this market volatility is 0.1% since 1896. So it's not unprecedented, but it doesn't happen very often. Velocity of plunge in the VIX surge on the fastest on record. 10-year Treasury yield at an all-time low. So the VIX is anytime you hear the VIX, it's the volatility index. It's basically how it's also called like the fear index. How scared are people of the markets? It's based on, I believe it's based on future or options pricing. Anyway, it's basically how spooked are people. So that has surged on the fast on record, and the 10-year Treasury yield at an all-time low. That means a lot of people are going to the U.S. government stuff, and driving those prices down, driving those yields down because there's a higher demand for them. So what does that tell you? That tells people are taking their money out of equities and buying treasuries because that's where it's safest. Another interesting thing here, and I need to update my prediction probably on this. I made a prediction that the next global financial crisis, I don't know if this is a global financial crisis. It's pretty close. I still got to think about this, but I'm shooting from the hip here, so I'll share a little with you early. I made the prediction that when the equity markets were going to fall, people would rush into crypto for safer. For safe haven. I made this a couple years ago. This was back when I was my predictions were a little more, I was kind of this was in the crypto craze. I was kind of getting in the hype, and thank God I didn't tell anyone, go and say, buy like a brick. But I did get a little excited and say, I think people are going to put their money into this when the equities fall. We didn't see that at all. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they fell just like the markets fell in lockstep. And where did people put their money when they got scared? Even gold fell, I believe. Gold fell. Good old U.S. government treasuries. It's kind of magical that still the safest place to put your money, based on what the markets are doing, not based on what Rush Limbaugh tries to sell gold bricks to your grandparents, okay? Dick. It's based on where are people actually doing with their money? Well, the market's reacting. They're putting their money in treasuries because people have faith in the U.S. government. It's a powerful thing. It's an interesting thing. It just shows people, look at what people do with their money. That's where they tell you what they actually believe. So it's people still put their money in the U.S. The U.S. government is still the safest place to put your money, full stop. I think that it's the risk-free rate. People know that already, but it's interesting to see it play out in practice. Okay, so I'm going to go through quickly. He mentions these in the memo, and I believe he's quoting someone, but here are some of the stress episodes of the last 25 years. Now, tell me which of these you remember. We're going through a stress episode right now, and my point of this is you're going to forget about this shit. In a couple years, you're not even remember. Well, you'll probably remember COVID-19, but my point is there's been other situations where the markets shat themselves, but after a few years, you forget about them. So here's a list in the last 25 years. Asian Contagion, 1997, LTCM, 1998, World Trade Center attack, 01, accounting scandals, 02, the big one, 08-09, the flash crash, 2010, Eurozone crisis, 2011, China repeg, 2015, and the VIX event, 2018. These sound like, this is by Dean Kirkett, Macro Risk Advisors, March 1. Dean Kernut. So it's hilarious. These sounded like bad sequel names. The big one, the flash crash, the Eurozone crisis, the China repeg. Dude, how many of those did you remember? You probably didn't remember very many of those. You could World Trade Center, certainly, the big one in 08-09, you remember that. But a lot of these you just forget about because in retrospect they're not that big a deal because the markets keep going. So it's important. He also says each one of these was followed by huge gains for stalwart investors. So anytime there's a stress event, there's huge gains. That's the way it works. That's sometimes it can take a little longer for the market to recover, but it's going to happen. So far, equity markets have a long history. Your retirement account's fine. Your money's fine. Don't take it out. Don't mess with it. In fact, you're going to make less money if you do with that. If you do that. Okay, so Howard Marks wrote in On the Couch, this was a memo he put out in January 2016, that in the real world, things generally fluctuate between pretty good and not so hot. But in the world of investing, perception often swings from flawless to hopeless. I love this. Wall Street's either buy, sell. Dude, relax. Relax. Don't temper yourself when the highs are highs and temper yourself when the lows are lows. The reality is always somewhere in between when you're talking. It's never as bad as you think. It's never as great as you think. So I just love that quote. Okay. So the negative effect of an unforeseeable catalyst is likely greater when it collides with a market that reflects so much optimism that it is priced for perfection. Again, this is Howard Marks speaking from his memo. So an unforeseeable catalyst like COVID-19 is going to be a greater detriment to the market when the market is priced for perfection. So what does that tell? The market's at all-time highs. When COVID-19, of course it's going to come down. If it didn't, that would be weird. In fact, if the price was not affected at all, you should be saying, oh, fuck, the financial system something's probably up there. Of course it's going to react. That's a good thing. That's a healthy reactive market. It's reacting to world events. That's a beautiful thing. So it was priced super high, priced perfection, maybe even priced too high, maybe overvalued. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to tell you it's overvalued, and neither is he, by the way, Howard Marks. But when it's priced for perfection, some shit hits the fan, it's going to go down, of course. So, as I said earlier, okay, in a flight to safety, people have flocked to the 10-year Treasury note, bidding up its price and dropping its yield to 1.1%. If you think about it, this isn't very different from the negative interest rates I complained about in October. How can it be anything but a manifestation of extreme fear to make an investment that guarantees a return of 1.1% a year for the next 10 years? And consider that question in the light of the 2% dividend yield on the S&P 500, or perhaps its earning yield of almost 6% based on prior earnings forecast. I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool devotee of equities, but how can dyed-in-the-wool devotee of equities, but how can buying the 10-year at these yields make better sense? So maybe you don't know this, but the S&P 500, the stocks, if you own an S&P 500 index fund, it basically gives you 2% a year. So if you have $1,000, let's make it easier, $100. $100 in an S&P 500 index fund. Every year, just for owning it, even if the price doesn't change, you'll get about 2% back in dividends because these companies pay you for holding their stock. They deliver money back to shareholders. That's how it works. Not all of them pay a dividend, but many of them do. So his point is you're going to treasuries that are going to guarantee 1.1% for 10 years. And this is, you're going to fly to that when the S&P 500 gives you 2% just for holding it. Now, granted, the value of the S&P, it can change, right? It can drop by 10%, then give you 2% in dividends. But it's a great point. There's not that much money there that you're going to be making these treasury bonds. So we'll see. Also, talk about interest rates. So I think the central bank, the Fed, cut it by, was it 50 bips? 50 basis points, 0.5%, something like that. So when interest rates are low, the central bank doesn't have the easiest option in its toolkit to respond. In addition to rate cuts, quantitative easing, purchasing securities. So here's the thing. So you cut interest rates, right? The Fed is, and Trump has been fucking hawkish with the Fed, saying keep interest rates low, blah, 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 blah. There's a reason that the Fed has historically then raised interest rates, right? You don't want to keep them too low for too long. Two reasons. One, it's how bubbles form. When money's too cheap, people throw their money at everything. That's the way it works. Too easy to get money? Boom, you're going to just spread that, and there's not an easy way to get returns. You're going to chase returns and maybe go into bad deals. The other thing when you keep interest rates low is that if shit actually hits the fan, you have less of a way to react to it. So if interest rates, like we've seen, there's some countries, I believe still right now, interest rates are negative. We've never seen that in the U.S. It's a brave new world. That's when you buy you have to pay them to hold your money. Imagine you giving your money to the government and then them taking money from that principal. It's a negative interest rate. And that is to encourage spending. So my point is, not my point. Shit. I just listen. I read what smart people say, and And then sometimes I'll take my own riff on it if I think they're missing something. But most of the time, I'm out here just reading shit, and I'm just trying to tell y'all that. Okay, that's my goal here. These guys are 50,000 times smarter than me, but I like to think I know what they're talking about. So if you drop interest rates too low, you have less of a way to react when markets actually hit the fan. So should they have lowered interest rates? I don't know. But what I do know, and what I think many people do know, is that now we have less in our toolkit for the future. That's all. Okay. So John Maynard Keynes, the kind of the granddaddy of deficit spending, he advocated for running debts to stimulate the economy, but then paying down that debt. Right? So a lot of people say, "Oh, Keynes, print money, the government, stimulate the economy." Yeah. Okay. Yes, there are times when I think it calls for that. But people miss the second part of what he said, right? He also said, okay, then when times are good, pay down that debt. You can't just keep printing money. We're borrowing from our kids, our grandkids. You don't just keep printing shit. And also, Howard Marks points out, quantitative easing, government buying securities is another way to provide liquidity in the market, provide cash, keep the system going. We don't know the long-term risk of that. We've only been doing it. We started doing it during the 08-09 financial crisis, somewhere around there, because of that crisis, and we don't know the long-term effects of that. And also, what, $1 trillion deficit a year, some shit like that? It's ludicrous. So listen, I'm not here to say, the government's going to default, U.S. government's fucked. As a percent of GDP, our debt, our total debt, I think it's like 25 trillion right now. Our total debt is less than it was in the like post World War II or like during World War II, I think. I think it's at about 70%. Don't quote me on this shit. But my point is, we've had a worse debt situation than we did before. Yeah, our debt is super high, 25 trillion. It sounds like a lot, but that's because me, you, none of us know what the fuck we're talking about. We just know that's a fat number, and I'm right there with you. That sounds fat. But the reality is that as a percent, you can't look at that number in a vacuum. As a percent of GDP, the U.S. economy has exploded, since 1940, 1950. And what does that mean? Our available tax revenue, the available GDP that we can tax, is higher. So we have a better way to respond to this deficit spending. So the debt. So I'm not saying we're screwed. I'm just saying we should probably figure this out. And the Republicans used to care about deficit spending. Now, especially with Trump, fiscal conservative, he gutted the party. No one's mentioned that since. It's hilarious. It's not even a topic of conversation in the Republican Party. The Republican Party just got absolutely steamrolled by Trump. It's really quite something. I miss the fiscal conservatives, the Republican side, balance out the Dems. It's a good balance, checks and balances. Well, that's checks and balances for the branches of government, but we make it work. Dems are in the presidency for a bit, and then the Republicans, you kind of go back and forth. Listen, I actually think that's worked pretty well. I don't think a fucking revolution is necessary, like Bernie, for example. We'll talk a little bit about that. So then he also has some comments on what he thinks of the actual flu itself. So besides the financial aspect, so he thinks it's reasonable to say, likely not the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, which infected a third of the planet and killed an estimated 20 to 50 million. At this point, he thinks it's probably, and this is based on shit he's reading, and he's very open about what he doesn't know. He's just based on his read of experts. It's not looking like it's that. Now it's still early. We could eat my words. He could eat his words, but it's looking like it's not a Spanish flu pandemic level. So he also says, it seems to me that it is unlikely to fundamentally and permanently change life as we know it, make the world of the future unrecognizable, and decimate business or make valuing it impossible. Yes, this is a guess. We have to make some of them. That speaks for itself. Also, he ends with, but no one... Well, actually, I'll say one more thing. So he also quotes Dr. Lipsitch of Harvard, which, based on a 2% fatality and 40 to 70% contraction, suggests 1 million deaths in the U.S. Dean Jameson of UCSF says that he thinks it's going to be more in the thousands. The reason for that we have a bigger warning time. This started in China. We are preparing for it, months before it's gonna really ramp up. It's already in the United States before it really ramps up. So we have more time to prepare, and we have better health facilities than China does. So he thinks it won't be the same infection. likely, even if it's the same infection rate, what it won't do, we have better healthcare facilities, and we'll be able to keep that fatality rate lower than in China, likely. Also, he also says, so Howard Marks, you got to understand where the memo is coming from. He says, but no one can tell you this is the time to buy. Nobody knows. So he ends with that. His thing is nobody knows. So everyone, he thinks there may be an opportunity, maybe there isn't. You got to understand he's looking to beat the market. If you're a regular investor, his time horizon 25, 30 years. Despite oak trees grow for 100 years, God bless him. His time horizon, his investors, is shorter than that. I mean, they have different funds for different horizons, but generally, if you're an investor, you're looking at 20, 25, 30 years if you're a young person. Now is the time to buy. Every day is the time to buy. And we'll talk a little bit more about when is the time to buy. I'm going to go in that in our finance section of this. We'll talk about that. Basically, if you were making monthly contributions to your 401k, keep doing it. If you're making IRA contributions, keep doing it. In fact, now is not the time to stop when the markets are low. This is how it works. You buy cheap. It's funny. Everyone knows, buy cheap, buy when it's low. And then when shit hits the fan, no one does it because it is a scary thing. I admit it's scary, but that's why investing is mostly about behavior, right? It's not about being a fucking scientist. Isaac Newton dropped invested like his entire life savings in some enterprise that failed, and he's a super smart guy. It's not about being smart. It's about being patient. It's about behavior. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so some good news. With COVID-19, a guy named Peter Zeihan, he's the guy I quote a bit on here. Again, I don't agree with everything he says, but he does make me think, and I love the way I love reading his stuff. It's so fun to read. At the end of the day, dude, I'm out here trying to have fun. When I read stuff, I'm trying to learn, but I'm not reading textbooks right now. You know what I mean? I'm reading things that get me jazzed. Warren Buffett shareholder letter, Howard Marks memo, Peter Zeihan newsletter, Benedict Evans newsletter. I read things that get me pumped up and get me excited. And that are fun to read. So Peter Zeihan, listen, I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical scientist, Jesus, whatever it's called. But he does have some interesting things. So it's funny. Everyone's freaking out. He says, why COVID-19 is actually a good thing. So his basic premise is that it's going to show us what a world looks like without China. And his whole thing is, and he just released a book called Disunited Nations on March 3rd. I've read about 20% of it. It's fun. It's good. His whole thing with China is that, and people have been saying this for years, mind you, that China's going to fall. I don't know necessarily that they're going to implode. I don't know. Shit. I'm not qualified to make statements like that. What I will say, I think the China hype is overdone. Oh, they're going to pass us in GDP and pass us. They're going to be the next world power. First of all, to be a world power, you have to have allies. They don't have allies. To be a world power, you need to have one of the things, reserve currency of the world. They're not the reserve currency of the world. The yuan, no one would touch that with a 10-foot pole. To be the world superpower, you need a military to be able to do that. You need a U.S. Navy that can patrol the world's waters. They don't have that. In my opinion, you need a free and fair. You need a free and fair press. You need people that have freedom, can do what they want. They can take money out of the country. You look at the Shanghai stock index, and this is shooting from the hip really here because I didn't see any articles on this, but I looked at it. I was like, damn, it's not as volatile as the S&P right now. But it's worse in China. Why isn't it? And I'm thinking they got some serious, they've done this before where they limit people selling. They can't take money out of, they have capital controls in their country. It's hard to invest. People can't take money out of the country. It's very difficult to do that. China's not going to be a superpower. I do think that. Are they going to implode? And they also have a shit ton of debt. They are financing with a shit ton of debt, and their state-run enterprises are not as efficient as American ones, or other free enterprise in the world. They got some big ass companies, but guys, the whole China fear does need to stop. But anyway, Zeihan thinks they're going to actually absolutely implode. Again, people have been saying this for years, so we'll see. Maybe this time he's right. So in his article about COVID-19, about why it's a good thing, and I'll link to this, he says, here's a couple things he says about China on why they're not actually in a very good position. So the U.S., we're now net exporters of oil, which is an insane thing. That became that way, I believe, at the end 2018. It became the first. We are now net exporters of oil. We have energy independence, which is a pretty crazy thing to think about. We don't rely on the Middle East anymore. Whereas China, with the bulk of their oil needs, are sourced from none other than the Middle East. They are the world's biggest importer of oil. They rely on the world. When you rely on the world for other things, that hurts your position of power. So China today uses 5 times the inputs per unit of food of American farmers and still hasn't achieved food self-sufficiency. 5 times as much goes into their agriculture system. We export a shit ton of food, and by we I mean the United States. We also import a shit ton, but we are self-sufficient on the food front. Shit hit the fan, we closed our borders, we'd be okay. Maybe we'd be eating a lot of grains. Maybe people getting kind of fat. Oh wait, too late, they already are. But we'd be okay. China, no. They would not be okay. So he also said the one-child policy has gutted the country's next generation of consumers far more effectively than anything the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward ever did. So he says, which means coronavirus is giving us a rare gift, a glimpse into the future, into a future without globalized manufacturing in general, but in specific, a glimpse into what a world without China looks like. And he says this because we're seeing these global supply chains that a lot of stuff is made in China. Absolutely, that you can't argue with that. Those are being disrupted. And his point is that as America withdraws from its kind of role as protecting the global trade system, which Zeihan constantly says this. He basically says it in every newsletter. Bretton Woods, post-World War II, the U.S. bribed the entire world, bribed Bretton Woods to say, we're going to open our markets, we're going to rebuild. And even the people that lost World War II we're going to make you rich too. Why? Because we're going to defeat the Soviets. It was a bribe, and that's the way he pitches it. So it's an interesting thing is, all intents and purposes, the people that lost the war, Japan, Germany, World War II, it was basically like they won with the Bretton Woods Agreement because the U.S. opened their markets. The whole world started trading like never before. The U.S. was ensuring global trade routes. Not everyone was fighting with each other for the first time in the world, and this is a fairly new thing. The first time in the world, the whole world was just trading with each other frictionless. It was like no other time in human history. Peter Zeihan's whole premise of everything he says is that's going to stop. Next couple decades, of course, he doesn't put a time on it because, he's not like your boy making solid predictions with expiration dates. But he's saying that shit's going to fall apart. Trade is going to be disrupted as the U.S. stops, running, protecting the trade routes and kind of being the world police because we're not as interested in that anymore. And we don't need to be. So we don't care about the Middle East anymore nearly as much as we do. We don't need to rely on their oil anymore. We've had a shale boom here, aka fracking, which we'll talk a little bit more about that. Bernie wants to ban. Say what you will about it. There are definitely, some drawbacks. But it's been a huge, at least one reason that not only we don't have to rely on the Middle East anymore, and frankly, I'd much rather we dig in the U.S. than we get our money from oppressive regimes overseas in the Middle East. Call me old-fashioned. And also natural gas. We're burning a lot of natural gas, and that's a lot cleaner than other forms of energy, and that's because of fracking. So listen, I'm not going to say it's a net good or a net bad. I'm not going to take a stand on that. I think probably it's a net good, but it's lowered emissions because natural gas burns cleaner, and we give less money to the Middle East, oppressive regimes over there. So it's like, perfect, sounds great. So here's he ends by, one of the things he says, any company or industry that can weather the suspension of industrial activity in the Pearl and Yangtze should be able to manage, these are two regions in China, should be able to manage the coming global collapse with relative ease. Any that can't, well, they now know precisely where their exposures are. The question now is whether impacted firms treat this as a one-off or a serendipitous peak that it is. Okay, so he's saying it's a good thing because we have a peek at what the world's going to look like when China isn't the electronic breadbasket. What's it look like when China can't deliver their goods all over the world? If you're a firm that relies on a shit ton of stuff in China, let's start, peeling that back. So one thing I will say about him, he dogs on China a lot. He also says that global trade everywhere is going to become an issue. So if it's not being made in China, where's it going to be made? Maybe Taiwan. Other countries, it's going to be made, Philippines, Mexico. What about global trade there? Now, Mexico, the U.S. doesn't have to worry about that. They're at our border. We trade a shit ton with Mexico and Canada. But what's going to happen? Okay, China shits the bed if no one can trade anywhere because all the global trade is gone. Or not gone, but it's not as frictionless as it was. That means, I think, more than just China's screwed. So this is, again, I don't necessarily agree with him on this stuff, and frankly, I don't have the credentials to agree or disagree with him. But I do think it's interesting. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about finance, specifically, not necessarily with regards to the COVID-19, but just some reminders here. Then we'll get into some predictions, technology, blockchain, and then some U.S. News here. Really just as it relates to Bernie Sanders. Okay, so there's a great post. I'll link to it. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This is the single greatest thing I've ever read on money. Warren Buffett has a lot of good stuff. He's read Jack Bogle, Intelligent, the Book of Common Sense Investing. Benjamin Graham, The Intelligent Investor. I only read about half of it. It gets super technical about bonds and coupon rates and shit. I'm like, fuck, man. I throw my money in the market. Don't talk to me about coupon rates. So I've read a decent, of some of the heavy, some of the kind of the top, the top popular stuff in this. And his blog post, it's super long. It's legendary. I really recommend you read it. It's so good. It's an amazing whirlwind of how to think about money, not just invest it, not just what you do with it, but also how to think about it. And what do business people think about it? What is, what does it mean to start thinking about money? What does that process look like? It's just a fascinating whirlwind blog post. I fucking love it. I've read it a couple times all the way through, and I've loved it every time. Okay, so anyway, he starts with a story. And this talks about the behavior. Kind of shows the behavior is the most important when it comes to investing. And by the way, my homie Jesse out there, I know I talked too fast. You told me last time, dude, I like the pod, but I can't understand it a little too fast. I'm gonna try to slow down again. I know. I'll keep it slow. Okay, so Grace Groner, he starts off his post. Again, this is Morgan Housel, Psychology of Money. He's at Collab Fund. I think that's where he is in a VC fund. Grace Groner, this woman, secretary her whole life, died at age 100. She was a secretary. She never married, lived in a single-bedroom house her whole life. I think worked 60 years or something, even longer than that. By all accounts, a nobody. Most people are nobody. I don't say that as a bad thing. Shit, I'm a nobody. But all accounts, a nobody. You know what she did after 100 years working as a secretary? You know how much money she left to charity? Just take a guess. Just like, okay, seriously, take a guess. If you work, let's say she worked, I don't know how long she worked. Let's say she worked for 80 years as secretary wage. Now, we don't know the specifics of what her money was, how much money she was making. I think she worked for a university. I forget, but secretary. Not like some hot shot secretary, just secretary, single bedroom house. 3, 2, 1. Think a little bit longer. How much money did she give to charity at the end? $7 million to charity. $7 million. What did she do? How did she make the money? She put it in the market. It compounded over time. Nothing fancy. Nothing different than what I'm telling you right now to do. Buy the market. Buy an index fund. Buy the total stock market index fund. I recommend just Betterment. It's easy. Or another robo-advisor like Wealthfront. We have a couple predictions on them, by the way, coming up. $7 million is absolutely insane. So he compares that with a guy named Richard Fuscone, former vice chairman of Merrill Lynch's Latin American division, who declared personal bankruptcy. A few months apart, both these stories came out. He was fighting off foreclosure on 2 homes, one of which was nearly 20,000 square feet and had $66,000 a month mortgage. Fuscone was the opposite of Grace Groner. Educated at Harvard and University of Chicago, he became so successful in the investment industry that he retired in his 40s to, and I love this, pursue personal and charitable interests. Okay, dude, relax. The guy that wrote this, Morgan Housel, says, that's because investing is not the study of finance. It's the study of how people behave with money. This Merrill Lynch jackass, he should have made a lot more money than, what's her name? Exactly, I forgot her name, Grace Groner. Why did she make more money? Not because she was smarter, because she behaved better with her money. She was chill. She just invested in the market, put her head down, worked, saved, game over. Now, a couple things here. Really interesting story. I recommend you check out that whole post, but it's just to, give you insight into, he also says, in what other industry is this even possible? If you're a doctor, you're not going to say, there's not some nobody that's going to do a better heart surgery than someone that's been doing it for 30 years, an expert. There's not, someone that, a mechanic, an expert mechanic is always going to be better than someone that doesn't know what the hell they're doing that's never done it. Investing is different. It's not about how much you know. It's about how you behave. And behavior can't be taught, he says. Behavior is something that is fucking It's above that. It can be learned. You can learn to behave, whatever. I'm not going to get too woke on you, but it's something special. You don't need to fucking have a Harvard University fucking degree to. Also, I love look at these endowments of these big ass universities. They're not beating the index. And part of that is capital preservation. They're not going to put all their money in equities. They shouldn't. So their returns are going to be lower. But it's just something to think about. Bloomberg put out a clickbait piece. Billionaires gained 33% or 28% in wealth in 2019. 29%. Billionaires increased their wealth by 29%. You read that headline, you think, oh my God, burn the rich. Habibis. The S&P 500 index, which anyone can invest in, which you're probably investing in your 401k, went up 31% in 2019. So, of course, billionaires, their wealth went up. Your wealth went up a shit ton, too. Now, granted, a larger percentage of their wealth is, based in companies and the stock went up. But my point is, you can access the way to get rich is never been more accessible. Also, speaking of which, this is a little tangent here. Let's talk about financial literacy. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple things here. I'm in the market for a car right now. I'm going to be buying a car. It's super exciting. This was after my millennial ass says, I will never own a car. I will never own a car, honestly. Like, Ubers and, I just won't own one. I can just, no, I need to get a car. I'll be living in LA. I need to get a car, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, whatever it is. I'm looking around. Now, I could afford a new car. I think most people can afford a new car. Anyone can afford a new car, basically. I mean, you get a loan. You can just pay it off in 10 years, whatever it is. Anyone can buy a new car. It's easy. I'm not going to get a fucking new car. I'm in maybe the 10K range. Something like a mini SUV, 05, 08, CarMax style. Shout out CarMax, certified pre-owned. I see how many new cars are on the street. And I'm talking about regular suburbs. I'm talking about your average Joe. I'm seeing new fucking cars all the time. I'm like, are you fucking rich? Everyone's just buying new cars. I'm not saying necessarily nice cars. I'm saying a new Ford pickup. I'm saying a new Hyundai. But still, a new car is fucking expensive if you really look at how much it costs compared to a used car from a decade ago that is still going to run just fine and give you 100,000 miles. Now, granted, people you're allowed to spend money on things you want to, spend. I'm not going to dog you, but it's like, I think most people would just assume, I'm going to get a new car. What else would I do? Get a used car and say 15K. Cars do the same shit. A nice car doesn't get you much. I'd rather have an extra 15K in my pocket over 5 years than a nicer car, and not have to worry about it getting dinged up. Your insurance is gonna be higher on a nicer car. God damn, they're walking financial money pits, bro. Just get a used car, and if you're trying to do some signaling bullshit, just you don't want to deal with that anyway. I beef with my dad on this shit all the time. I'm like, dude, just get it. Fuck, man, why do you keep leasing a new car, dude? It's a money pit. He's like, oh, I like it. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Yeah. So that's my little hot take on cars. Okay. So a little more on the markets here. So this is by CEO of Vanguard, Tim Buckley. So this is John Bogle started Vanguard. He's like my god. So Tim Buckley says, in my 30 years in the business, I've seen many market storms. Repricings are inevitable, sometimes violent, but never predictable. Panic and rash action aren't your ally. I'm going to give a few more quotes. So this is for you. If you're worried about the markets, please listen. Those who cash out find it impossible to know when to get back in. Indeed, investors that deviate from their long-term plans typically regret it later. I know how difficult it is to see hard-earned savings diminish, but don't be tempted to time the markets. It's a losing strategy. Our studies have shown that chasing returns have historically destroyed 1.5% a year versus staying the course. 1.5% a year for chasing returns. 1.5% a year over a few decades is potentially hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. It's a lot of fucking money. 1.5% a year. Because remember, it compounds on itself. Because that extra 1.5% a year you'll get by not chasing the market this year, that'll build on itself, and so on and so forth. And that'll build on itself. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing. It's amazing. So he also says, Tim Buckley, amidst the uncertain world around us, I am confident that these tough times will pass and we will emerge stronger than before. Valuations were high, the markets have repriced, but your long-term growth prospects remain sound. Yeah, people, this isn't a fundamental issue of $600 billion of bad loans or something like that. with mortgage-backed securities and the global financial crisis in 08, 09. That was the economy was sick, right? This is different. This is different. This is an external thing. The economy is, it will be hurt by this. Full stop. You can't doubt that. Well, some firms will benefit, but on the whole, it's going to hurt growth globally. But the economy's not sick. It's not as if, oh shit, all these top 20 companies were doing fucked up accounting shit and now everything's been a lie. No. This isn't some Enron shit. This is outside of the economy. This is something external affecting it. So the economy's still here. It's still, rather the businesses, not the businesses are. This is something affecting the business themselves. Are still sound, right? There isn't some bombshell that came out about them with bad shit on their books or something like that. So we're gonna be good. Get through this. So I also had a few tweets. I love quoting myself. I always feel like a douche, but okay. So I tweeted. Again, all my stuff is on Twitter as well. God, I always forget to fucking shout this shit out, man. I gotta write that down. So, did I write that? Oh, I also forgot to people. God, I forgot a lot of shit. Okay. Twitter shout out. I got to shout. Okay, I'm on Twitter at Dick C. Lucas. Instagram at Dick C. Lucas. Follow the newsletter. That'll be a link. Yeah, follow me there. So all this stuff I tweet out. So before the podcast comes out, before Shooting from the Hip comes out, you know what I'm going to talk about because I've tweeted every single thing I'm going to talk about. There's a few things I add, very few. But mostly you know what I'm getting because it's stream of consciousness on Twitter. I'm like, yo, this is interesting. I have a hot take on this, blah, 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 blah. So it's all there. Oh, also, shit, I should have mentioned this at the beginning because fucking half y'all stopped listening. But I'm looking for help. Help out the No Gradient team. I am looking for help with the newsletter. It's currently a once-a-month thing. Maybe want to move it to once a week, but it is super time-consuming. So I want someone's going to help me with that. Let me know if you're interested. I'm looking for anyone. It's going to be probably a few hours a week, but I'm looking for someone to help me out. Email dick@nogradient.com. Let's build something right now. I think I am trying to make this. I would love for this to be as successful as possible. I really would. I'm putting time into it. I need help though. I'm getting into a workflow where I think I can start delegating some work because I think we got a steady stream of what to expect the work is. I've been doing a lot of experimentation the last few years, but I think I'm settling in on something. So yeah, if you want to help, dick@nogradient.com, tweet at me. I would love to hear from you. Be a few hours a week. Join the team. It'd be epic. Okay, so hate to be the bearer of good news. This is something I tweeted. Hate to be the bearer of good news, but the S&P 500 has only fallen to where it was in October 2019. Not even a year of gains wiped out. Okay, this was as of Friday, March 6th. So not even a year of gains have been wiped out. So if you're losing your shirt right now, shit, God help you. Oh my God, God help you. At its lowest point during the global financial crisis of 2008, it fell to where it was in September 1996. It's over a decade of gains wiped out in 2008. So your parents, the millennials out there, you're losing your shirt right now. Imagine what they had to weather while putting you through private school. They had a decade of gains wiped out from their fucking 401ks. And you were talking about, Mom, I want money to go to the movies. And you were asking, and you had the gall to give them a Christmas list that year. Said, I want these things. You had the gall. And they got a decade of gains wiped out. You're worried about a year, not even a year of gains wiped out. From all-time highs, S&P 500, and you're losing your shirt. So let's everyone calm down. Even if it was a decade of gains wiped out. Stay the course. It doesn't change anything. Stay the course. Also on March 6th, shout out. I also tweeted, on this day 11 years ago, this was 11 years ago as March 6th, during the global financial crisis, the S&P 500 hit its low of 666.79. 666.79. Oh, damn, that is actually fascinating. I didn't even realize 666. Whoo. So it hit its low. The S&P 500 hit its low of the financial crisis, 666. On March 6th, it opened at 2,900. Economy's doing great, people. Everyone relax. Okay, a few more things. Benjamin Graham, I was reading through. He has a book called The Intelligent Investor. Warren Buffett recommends it. It's his number one. He says, read this book. It's all you need. I recommend, I think, the Little Book of Common Sense Investing because Benjamin Graham, for your average person, he gets into the details, and you don't need to know the details. You used to, but now that financial products are so easy to use, and so he's something like a Betterment, robo-advisor. So easy to use. So anyway, but here's some quotes, and this book was written a while ago, I think like in the 40s or some shit, but it was updated. They've had new editions. So here's some quotes I'm just going to pull from it. While enthusiasm may be necessary for great accomplishments elsewhere, on Wall Street it almost invariably leads to disaster. And that's enthusiasm either way, whether too exciting or enthusiasm too pissed off. Your chances of selecting the top performing funds of the future on the basis of their returns in the past are about as high as the odds that Bigfoot and the Abominable Snowman will both show up in pink ballet slippers at your next cocktail party. Benjamin Graham. He's a cobra. He is a cobra. I love when he just puts it in things like that. Really. He also compares bonds to sex, or to marriage, or no, to sex. Yeah. No, he says something about doing X is like marrying just for the sex. Obviously not a good thing to do. That's not long-term growth right there for sure. Yeah. So, you might hear someone, oh, there's some strategy, buy this ETF, it's super hot, medical companies are super hot, this fund X is super hot. You're investing for the long term. The vast majority, and I tweeted out a picture of this, you want to see the exact percents. Every year he showed from 2002, looking back, how many funds beat the index, the S&P 500 index. And granted, these are going to charge you more fees too. 1 year, I think like 40% beat it. 2 years, 50%. It kind of went up, actually. It was interesting. 5 years, 30. After 10 years, like 20. After 20 years, like 14%. So some funds do beat the market. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's impossible to know which ones will do it. And it's a loser's game to try to figure it out. And if you're talking to Bill, your neighbor, mine. Oh no, yeah, well, yeah, if you're talking to Bill and he's saying, "Yo, dude, I got this fund. It's going up. The last year, it's going up." Dude, let him go up. Don't count other people's money. And frankly, maybe it's going to go up, but the reality is, don't look at what other people. Just buy the market. Buy the fucking market. Okay. Let's see. If your investment horizon is long, at least this is Benjamin Graham from Intelligent Investor. If your investment horizon is long, at least 25 to 30 years, there's only one sensible approach. Buy every month, automatically, and whenever else you can spare money. Just buy. It's not rocket science, people. Buy every month. If you say I can put X amount away, keep putting X amount away. It's just straight up, people. I haven't touched any. My plan has not changed at all during all this. I'm trying to ramp things up financially, hike the PCT for 6 months, so I'm still trying to ramp things up. So I'm trying to just get some cash in the checking account right now. But I haven't started, my dividend, I'm not adding money right now to my investments, because I haven't added them for fucking eight months or whatever, because I haven't been working. But I just started working, so it's chill. But dividends, automatically are getting reinvested. So I'm not taking those dividends out. I'm still reinvesting that way. I haven't, big believer in, don't look at what someone tells you to do. Look what they do. But I haven't taken any money. I haven't sold anything. I haven't done anything. I could have taken some money out. It's like, dude, no, I didn't. I promise you that. And hey, listen, I would fully admit if I got a little spooked, because we're all in this together. If I got a little spooked and took out a few thousand, okay, whatever. I would admit that, but I haven't. Okay, so that's the end of the finance stuff. So we're going to talk about a few predictions I have. Let's see how much time we're on in here. 58. God damn. I'm moving this to once a week to try to get it to 1 hour. Okay, how many pages of stuff do we have here? Whoo. 3 pages. Damn. Okay, we're going to start moving a little faster. Damn, I was going on some tangents. I'm having a little bit too much fun. And I got to think of PP. So we're going to have to speed this up. Okay, predictions. So these are predictions again. I post predictions on No Gradient. These are predictions that I'm making. And I've tracked the accuracy of all my predictions. My prediction hit rate, accuracy rate's about 33%. A lot of them are unresolved, which means we don't know if they've become true or not. But I have a few predictions. A few new ones. I have 4 new ones. Let's talk about them. Before 2030, WhatsApp will allow users to send cross-border payments. Full stop. I think probably without fees too. But I didn't put that in the prediction. I try to leave them as broad as possible, not narrow myself in. Facebook's really interested with their marketplace stuff and their WhatsApp business stuff. They're interested in how can people move money easier. Libra, their blockchain cryptocurrency project. Yeah, I think by 2030, WhatsApp's going to allow you to send money through it. Okay, before 2040, GitHub will comply with at least one government demand to delist a repository in at least one region. So GitHub has been blocked in China, for example. GitHub's a website where you share code. So open source code, you've heard of that. You share code on GitHub. As code becomes increasingly important, it's important today, but we ain't seen nothing yet. I seriously think we're just starting to scratch the surface with this shit, which is why I'm so bullish on the world. I'm not Peter Zeihan. I think growth is going to absolutely explode for everyone, everywhere. Full stop. I'm more bullish in the U.S. because I think we've got some fundamentals here that are good. But, yeah, so my point is code's getting more and more important. I think it's going to make sense that one government somewhere is going to tell GitHub, not going to block GitHub wholesale, but say, yo, you have to remove this repository in this region because it allows either someone to do something bad to the government or it allows censorship-resistant stuff. Something like that. So that's another prediction. Now, next one. Before 2040, it will be commonplace to use technology that translates conversational speech in real time to allow for communication between individuals who speak different languages. You ever been international, you go to a little shop, you go to buy a tchotchke so you can bring home and remember your trip. You're trying to talk to them if you're overseas, and different language, not even overseas. You try to go to Canada, talk to them, the English is different. No, just kidding. But you're trying to do, I think by 2040, we'll have some, something like AirPods, voices going in, and live while you're talking. It'll just, while they're talking to you, it'll be transcribed, translated in your mother tongue. You say it to them, they'll be wearing a similar thing. So you can do this right now, kind of. You hold up Google Translate phone and kind of do it. It's a nightmare. No one's ever going to do that. It's not seamless enough. It's not frictionless enough. It's harder than just, frankly, typing Google Translate. Google did a thing with their Pixel Buds demonstration of like, oh, live translation. No one's used that. It's not fast enough. It's not good enough. It's not high quality enough. It will be by 2040. These things will take time. And I think that'll be a common thing that, it will be a common thing to speak to someone in a different language. Even, you don't have to be overseas to use it. A lot of Spanish speakers in the U.S., a lot of different language spoken in the U.S. But totally. I really think that's going to become a thing. Before 2030, Betterment, Wealthfront, or M1 Finance will be acquired. These are robo-advisors. They make it easy to manage your money. I recommend them. Mostly Betterment. I personally use Betterment. Wealthfront, I think, is pretty good. M1 Finance I have less experience with. I think one of them is going to get acquired by a big financial institution. I didn't say that in this because, again, I like to keep my predictions broad, but I think they're going to get acquired by a big financial institution. It's so much easier to manage your money on those platforms than it is on anywhere else. I also use Vanguard, and the UI, the UX is on there. It's just a nightmare compared to these robo-advisors. So that's an interesting thing. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Those are the new predictions. Okay, so let's keep moving here. So exciting and technology news. We're moving to technology now. GM released a new EV platform, electronic vehicle platform, and a new battery called Ultium. They also, their EV platforms basically, think of it's a chassis that you can build different vehicles on top of. So you build one chassis and you can put different types of vehicles on it. They do that. This isn't a new thing, but they're doing it now. They announced an electric vehicle platform for it. VW has their MEB platform, or MEB. So honestly, I don't tell people to pick stocks. I'm not telling you to buy GM, but and GM stock has basically been doing nothing for 5 years. I like what GM's doing. I think they were early with the Volt. I remember talking to a friend about the Chevy Volt and being like, this was a few years ago. I was like, there's literally no other car that makes sense to get. You get 40 miles range. If you can plug in at home, 40 miles range plus the gas, like, you got the best of both worlds. This is an amazing vehicle. They discontinued that vehicle because they're going all in on electric, which respect. But they got their Bolt. I see the Bolt around. They really are. You think of GM, you think of your grandpa. They're doing really cool shit with electric vehicle stuff. So I'm really excited to see what they do. So in January, they said they would invest $2.2 billion in their Detroit plant. They have a joint venture with LG Chem, South Korean company, which is last December, to mass produce batteries for electric cars. And the Chevy, just the Volt was $33K, so it was a little pricey. But for what you were getting, for potentially not, if your commute's under 40 miles a day total, You weren't paying for gas. That's huge. That's an epic vehicle. And it had CarPlay and Android Auto. It's a legendary vehicle. Also, Tesla's worth 3 GMs, which is hilarious. Tesla's, inflated right now. Probably. I mean, I would never say that something's inflated. I mean, sometimes I will, I guess. But, the market knows more than I do. So I'm not going to say one way or the other. Yeah, Tesla's worth about 3 GMs. So, which seems crazy to me. Like GMs, they're doing shit with the EV in the EV space. Like Teslas are legendary, and their experience is unparalleled. And I think it's going to take years. And I think Tesla should be valued at what they are. I think it at least kind of makes sense. Because they do more than cars too. They're an energy company. They do the solar stuff, so they do more than just cars. It's not unfair to compare them to just cars. Just auto manufacturers. So, but I like what GM's doing. Let's see what they do. And on one hand, The Verge said. So I was reading The Verge on this, which I kind of dog on The Verge. I dog on it. It's a publication, but I always find myself going to it. So it's like, if I dog on it, why am I going to it? So I think I actually kind of like it secretly. Because I think it's gotten a little bit better, honestly. It's a little bit more reserved. It used to be a little more clickbaity. I think it's actually gotten better in that regard. So I actually go anyway. So they also said that on one hand, GM's like, oh, electric vehicles are the future. Then they're lobbying against, they're lobbying to make it illegal for California to set stricter emissions than the federal government. Whereas VW is on the side of California. So it's like, GM, what are you doing? I know you're trying to make money for your shareholders, but don't tout this whole EV thing and then tell California that their stuff's too strict. So a little interesting little thing there. Okay, got a couple more tweets we're gonna riff on quickly. That's the end of technology. We're into blockchain stuff. Okay, love this one. Benedict Evans, Zoom, Shopify, and Stripe are 3 fun examples of companies that were obviously impossible because the tech giants can easily expand into new areas and squash competition. And Zoom wasn't even doing anything new. Their combined value, $123 billion. So I mentioned No Gradient Retracts earlier. I had an article. It was one of the first public articles I posted on No Gradient. It was Big Tech is eating the world. Like, oh, Big Tech is squashing everything. No one can compete. It's a good point. Zoom, Shopify, and Stripe. And I no longer believe that anymore. I'm no longer worried about that. But Zoom, video calling. Oh, Google Hangouts been doing that for years. Skype been doing that for years. Shopify, oh, e-commerce stuff. What? Stripe, online payments. PayPal's been doing that for years. Like, what? How can, But these are new entrants that are fucking worth $123 billion. So the market is still dynamic. Big tech is not the end-all, be-all. And we're going to see more interesting stuff in the future. Here's another one. Here's another tweet. That was a tweet by Benedict Evans. This next tweet is by Antonio Garcia Martinez. After watching Bloomberg incinerate over $500 million in ads uselessly, is this then when those of us who mocked the notion that 100K in Facebook ads and Jesus memes could steal an election, gloat over our misguided former colleagues, or are they too busy coming up with new Facebook takes? So remember when Facebook, Facebook is the reason Trump's in the White House. Bullshit. I don't believe that. There's Facebook, $100,000 of ads from Russia purchased to get Trump in the White House. Come on, dude. Mike Bloomberg spent $500 million, and even if his ad targeting was worse, which it probably wasn't, even if his ad campaign was worse, he didn't make a dent in Super Tuesday with $500 million in ads. So don't say it's Facebook's the end all be all and Facebook ads control our democracy. Bullshit, dude. Tell me how it does. Show me. I don't believe it. Okay, blockchain news. So I like covering stuff. I'll typically retweet this stuff too. I'll retweet stuff that, we got some Canadian geese coming in here. Ooh, crash landing. I got a body of water right here. They're kicking it. Ooh, they might go behind me. Let's see. Oh, you can hear them. Let's turn the gain up on the mic. Can you hear them? Yeah. Nah, you can't hear him. You hear that dog bark, though. I turned the gain up on the mic. Oh, wow, we got some people over there chilling. Yeah, I'm just chilling here. Okay. Anyway, so we got, blockchains. Yeah, so I'll typically tweet, because a lot of people in the crypto space are just, it's exhausting. It's hard to be interested in it when so many people are like, to the moon, new Lambos. They're all only talking about the price. They're not talking about the technology. And they're only tweeting, talking about, not even tweeting, just writing about things that aren't moving the needle for the actual industry. So I like to look at, okay, what are the big institutions doing when it comes to blockchain? Look at what they're doing, because they're smart. They move slowly, but they're smart. They got smart fucking people there. So what are they doing? If they do something, it must, it means something. So Lloyd's of London, which is let's see, it's basically an insurance company. It's operating in the UK, but it's kind of owned by the government. So it operates as a partially mutualized marketplace within which multiple financial backers grouped in syndicates come together to pool and spread risk. Okay. So they're made possible by the Lloyd's Act of 1871. So this is like some old school fucking insurance type shit right here. This is an old school company. As of 2018, they were supporting, they provide insurance for cold wallets, meaning they're not connected to the internet. The wallet is not connected to the internet. So if I put my Bitcoin wallet on a flash drive and that flash drive is not connected to the internet, no one can touch it, right? The key's on there, no one can touch it. They would provide insurance for that, for I think mainly institutions, like people that hold, institutions that hold a lot of crypto. They'll provide insurance for that. But now they just announced they will be doing it for hot wallets as well. So wallets connected to the internet, which are definitely more risky. Anything connected to the internet is infinitely more risky than something locked in a box. And it's not connected to the internet. So they're going to start doing that as well. And Lloyd, this is an old school. These people there's not millennials running this shit, dude. This is an old school institution. So you know what? When they're doing something in a blockchain, again, blockchain, I really think there's something here. I'm going to say this every podcast, every time I talk about it. I really think there's something here. I don't know if that means the price is going to go up. What I do know, what I do think I know, what I do believe is that the technology is here to stay, and I think we're going to see some cool stuff with it. We're already seeing some cool stuff with it. I can send a US dollar anywhere in the world to you if you have a phone and internet connection anywhere in the world. No fee. 2 cents in fees about. I can also send $100, $1,000 for 2 cents in fees. Same amount of fees. 2 cents, not 2%, 2 cents. Remittances, fees, sending money worldwide, 5%. Fleece you. It's a nightmare. Okay, another interesting thing here. Greenidge, this is a power plant in New York. Greenidge is now owned by it's a company called Greenidge. It was first established in 1937. It's owned by Connecticut-based Atlas Holdings. They installed a bunch of mining rigs in this energy. I think it's a natural gas plant. I forget what it is, but they installed a bunch of mining rigs, and they're making about. The server farm currently consumes 14 megawatts of the 106 megawatts of Greenidge's capacity. That's enough electricity to power well over 1,000 homes. So they're making, I think, like how many thousands of dollars a day? Fuck, tens of thousands of dollars a day doing this. So you're seeing a company mine Bitcoin because they're gonna make money off it. And what's interesting is the Bitcoin block mining reward. It halves every 210,000 blocks. So you hear this thing called the halvening. So pretty soon, in about 2 months, the rewards that you get for mining Bitcoin are going to drop from 12.5 to 6.25 coins. And why are the rewards dropping? Because over time, it's a deflationary thing. So by 2140, actually, the last Bitcoin will be minted. There will be no more in circulation. And then you say, well, how are miners going to be financially incentivized to secure the network? Well, they're going to secure it with fees. That when you send a Bitcoin transaction, you already pay fees, but they also get a mining reward as well. But they'll just be it'll just be fees alone. Damn, I really got to pee, so I'm gonna kind of rush through this shit. But 21, by 2140 there'll be 21 million. There's currently 18 million that have been produced. By 21 million. By 2140, 21 million will be produced. Okay, so let's go. I'm actually going to save something for next section here, or next time I do this podcast. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you know what? Damn, do I go take a pee right now? You know what? Stay on the line. Stay on the line right here. And I don't edit the podcast. I need like 30 seconds. Legitimately. 1 second. Okay, I'm coming. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for waiting. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get some water while I'm at it. Okay, we got some good stuff. Let me turn up the gain. We got some good stuff. Turn the gain down. Okay, we're good. Thank you for that intermission. Okay, so I'm actually good. How are we doing on time? I really want to try to keep this under an hour. Hour 15. Okay, we're doing better. We're doing good on time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about fucking Bernie Sanders a bit. Let's get some more slack in this. We just got to get kind of reset up here. Okay, Bernie Sanders. So introed that at the beginning of the podcast. So if you're a little worried, oh, he was our guy. I No Gradient officially endorsed Joe Biden January 31st, simply because he has the best chance of beating Trump. I should point out, I don't spend much time talking about Trump. I don't tweet about him. I don't write about him much. Frankly, I've just declared bankruptcy on him. It's, again, I write and talk about things that I'm interested in because that's what I think is going to be the most interesting for you guys. If I'm talking about something I'm interested in, it's going to be, I just talk about it in in my opinion, a cooler way. I'm more engaged. It's more fun. Trump is just comically, it's just a joke. I I stay up on what the shit he's doing, but I don't add to the noise of everyone just saying he's dog shit because, he is. Okay? But I don't spend too much time talking about because I'm just like, I'm so done with it. I'm just like, God damn it. Let's get him out of there. Let's get him out of there. And I do think, some of the things, and I'm also not one of those people that thinks everything he does is wrong. I think his call out on NATO, the way he does it is horrible, has been horrible. But I think his call out of, that our allies need to be spending, I think, 2% of GDP when they're not. They should do that. If that's what they agree to, they should do that. But he's a total dick about it, and that's not how you keep allies. His stuff with China, that I don't think the trade war is a good call. But, calling China out for some of the bad shit they're doing, good. They do some bad anti-competitive shit. They prop up their own businesses. They make our businesses outside of China very difficult to compete there. They steal intellectual property. They do a lot of bad shit. They should get called out. So I don't want to be one of those people that just says everything he does is bad or wrong or, because that's not a good way to cover anyone. You got to take each thing in isolation and view it rationally. But yeah, just generally, I think he's a bad president, full stop. So who's got the best chance of beating him? Joe Biden. And I said this for a couple reasons. The Economist, big fan of The Economist publication, they put out a piece that said basically two reasons. One, he's going to do well in swing states with black voters specifically. And the second is, second reason, he's not going to drive Republicans to the polls like more. The point is that more extreme candidates. There's been studies on this. I forgot what the study. I think these guys were at Cal Berkeley that did this. Anyway, I'll link to it. When you have a more extreme candidate, it convinces the other side to actually come out and vote. So it drives opposition. You think of a Bernie Sanders like candidate who is an absolutely extreme candidate, extremely left wing. He would drive a lot of Republicans to the polls. That would, I think, vote against him should he go Trump v. Sanders. So I don't think Sanders would beat Trump. Anyway, so I think Biden's the guy. Yeah, I get the Biden problems. But let's talk a little bit about Bernie, because I think a lot of young people. Let me start by saying, I think there's certainly things. I admire his consistency. I admire that he's been, healthcare is totally something that needs to get fucking fixed. And the Republicans, what have they? So far, the Republican response has been just to try to dismantle the ACA. And they don't. It's like, okay, if you think the ACA is bad, give us something better. You know what I mean? Like the Republican response to healthcare has been an absolute fucking joke. And I'm not saying the ACA was perfect, but if the Republicans got something better, then let's do it. I'm all ears. I'm legitimately all ears. I'm not just saying that. I actually want to know what you got. So So the healthcare is an absolute problem. So it does need to be dealt with. So I will say his champion of making the healthcare, bringing that healthcare to the front of the debate. Good for him. But I'm now about to proceed to dog on him. So here's a few things I want you to think about. And this is some. This is a lot. This was all taken. These points were taken from The Economist. They had the cover story, "America's Nightmare," and it was talking Bernie Sanders versus Trump. That would be a nightmare. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm just going to kind of go through some quick facts about Bernie Sanders. These are just facts. Okay, So he's been in Congress for 30 years, and he's been a primary sponsor on just 7 bills that became law, 2 of which were renaming post offices in Vermont. The guy's a blowhard. He's been doing a lot of talk. Where's the legislation? What have you been doing for fucking 30 years, brother? He's proposing to take 20% of equity in companies, give it to workers. Federal jobs create a federal jobs guarantee, require companies to qualify for a federal charter. He's hostile on free trade. He wants to double government spending without showing how he's going to pay for it. Unemployment's currently at a record low. Nominal wages in the bottom quarter of the jobs market growing by 4.6%. Yet he wants to, absolutely upend the system. He wants to ban private insurance. Not even the UK does that, and they love their national health system. He wants to cut billionaires' wealth in half over 15 years. Ban fracking, which, by the way, decreases carbon emissions, and decreases our reliance on Middle Eastern oil. So think about that. He wants to make university costs free, which would be gains to the relatively wealthy. Who goes to university? Rich people. Or more well-off people, or people that will be well-off. So it's going to actually help them. It's not helping your average Joe or your lower income Joe. He wants to decriminalize border crossing, break up ICE. The Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency. Yeah, they do some fucked up shit. Do I think we should have open borders? No. Immigration's super important from a selfish perspective. Immigration's important. If you're a country, you want to it increases growth. You want to keep the economy dynamic. You want to get the best workers. It's a good thing. Immigrants are awesome, obviously. But you shouldn't have to have open borders. Then what does that tell the people that came in legally through the process? What does it tell them that they spent 10 years trying to get in, do this whole legal, and then just allow people to come in that aren't getting documented and registered and all that. And also another thing, when people come in and aren't registered, they're more likely not to go to the police when shit hits the fan. If you'll think of one case, and I don't know how rampant this is, but this is something to think about. I don't think it's talked about enough. You're not going to go to the police if they're taken advantage of by gangs specifically, right? If gangs are taking advantage of you, and I don't know how rampant this is, but it's something to think about. They're not going to go to the police, so they're going to be either complicit in it or either complicit in it or not be able to report it, or so it is. It's funny that just all immigration, just make it all good. Which it sounds good to say that, but realistically, you can't do that. There's a reason countries have borders, and yes, should we increase the amount of immigrants coming into the country? Probably. Should we prioritize ones that where we have needs for certain jobs? Absolutely. Which we already do that. So those are the types of conversations you can have, I think, is to the degree to which immigrants should come in, right? Like, should we? It's a reasonable question to say we should increase the amount of immigrants. What I don't think is a reasonable conversation to have is we should just decrease immigration, or just decriminalize border crossings and just banish ICE, which I know they're doing. I know they've done fucked up shit. I'm not saying they haven't. I'm just saying it's a little unrealistic. Okay, so what else we got here? He wants to ban nuclear energy. He's shown support for Cuba and Nicaragua dictators for the sake of socialism. So I love when people do this. Like, he's shown support. Cuba and Nicaragua, these are countries whose governments oppress their people, and he's like, oh well, it's socialism, so let's dap them up. And when asked about how he's gonna ban private insurance, he said he would hold rallies in states to force senators' hands. So in the senators that disagreed with him, he would hold rallies in those states and basically kind of force them into it. whatever you want to say about politics, at the end of the day, it is compromise. You know what I mean? Who's going to work with this guy? He doesn't. Yeah. So with regards to giving equity to workers, proposing to take 20% and give the equity to workers, that sounds good. And there are ways that, companies give equity to workers. There's stock purchase plans. There's, especially in startups, early companies, they give equity to workers. People give equity to workers. If you give equity to workers, they aren't the people that know how to run the business. They can be very good at doing their job, but that doesn't mean they know how to run the business. Also, having a federal charter, having a bureaucrat, this is some China shit. Having a bureaucrat basically get to make decisions about how well you're doing. The issue with giving some of this stuff in the hands of the government is that it becomes a game of favors, not who's the best. So if your charter for the financial government is Joe Schmo, and you want to get some plant approved, you give him a few kickbacks, then he'll approve it. It's like, is that what we want? Is that what we want things to come to? So I just don't think, I don't think he's a realistic candidate. I don't think he's gonna get the nomination. Jeremy Corbyn, who wasn't even as extreme, he had also some other problems. I don't know as much about this, but I'm pretty sure he had a pretty bad history of racism. There's something that came out there. I don't know the details on that. So he's certainly worse than Sanders in some ways. But what I will say, he's not worse. Some of the things Sanders is saying is more extreme. Some of the taxes, some of the stuff with the businesses, the charter from the federal government to make sure your company is doing what the federal government wants it to be doing. Now, don't get me wrong, governments need to follow laws. I'm not saying that. Companies need to follow laws, but having a specific charter that's a whole nother hands-on approach that, like I said, that's some China shit right there. So what I was saying was Jeremy Corbyn ran, their Labour Party ran in the UK a few months back. They ran on a similar platform to Bernie Sanders. What did the UK people do? They elected the most unpopular Tory party in decades. The Tories, the Conservative Party, the Tories, absolutely wiped them out. Boris Johnson wiped out the Labour Party, destroyed them. People didn't even like them, but they were that afraid of what the Labour Party was doing with government control, state, giving more and more power to the government. Listen, we need regulation. I'm not saying that, but what we don't want to do is you don't want to have the government do things it's not good at, like give them control over major industries. That doesn't work. That makes them less efficient. We know these things. Like, this isn't, again, I don't talk about things where I feel like, I don't really feel confident on this. Look at a reading of history. Socialism doesn't work. Full-scale socialism. Bernie Sanders is absolutely, he's also not a Democrat, so that's hilarious. He's running on the Democrat Party. He's not a Democrat. Having the government take control of major industries, which is what socialism is, which is not what we have in the U.S., obviously, that doesn't help things. Show me a case where it's worked. Do we need fair taxes? We need to prevent loopholes and make sure rich people, corporations are paying their fair share. Absolutely, that's a whole different thing. And a lot of people say, "Oh, Bernie, so we should be more like the Nordic countries, right? Finland, Sweden, Iceland, Norway. These are capitalist countries. These are not socialist countries. They have high rates of taxation. Now, if you want to talk about should we raise the rates on taxes, maybe. That's a different question. The government doesn't control these companies. So I'm all for some of the, can we learn from some of these, governments that people think Bernie is trying to replicate? Yeah, sure, we can learn some things, but that's not what he's going for. Also a wealth tax, which has been shown not to work because rich people are good at hiding their money, and it's an expensive thing to also administer. So for the burners out there, guys, come on. Like, what are we talking about? This is such a no-brainer to me. And the guy has 7 bills in 30 years, 2 of which were renaming post office. What are we talking about? Like, Elizabeth Warren, I don't agree with her. She was not only for the reason that I think she wasn't going to beat Trump, but yeah, but she's got some legislative chops. You know what I mean? Bernie, come on, guys. This is not our guy. He's not our guy. He's not, and I don't think he would beat Trump. So I want to read a couple of things the way this The Economist, they worded this really well. So I'm going to read an excerpt how they ended this article of dogging on Bernie Sanders. So here's what the mainstream 3/4 of Democrats have begun to tell themselves that Mr. Sanders would not be so bad. By the way, this was before the Super Tuesday results. So now it's looking like Bernie's not going to win, but this is before. But still think it's worth talking about. So some point out that he would not be able to do many of the things he promises. This excuse-making, with its implication that Mr. Sanders should be taken seriously but not literally, sounds worryingly familiar. Mr. Trump has shown that control of the regulatory state plus presidential powers over trade and over foreign policy give a president plenty of room for maneuver. His first term suggests that it is unwise to dismiss what a man seeking power says he wants to do with it. Mr. Sanders becomes the Democratic nominee. America will have to choose in November between a corrupt, divisive right-wing populist who scorns the rule of law and the Constitution and a sanctimonious, divisive left-wing populist who blames a cabal of billionaires and businesses for everything that is wrong with the world. All this when the country is as peaceful and prosperous as at any time in its history. It's hard to think of a worse choice. Wake up, America. Yeah. So I just don't think he's our guy. I'm glad it's looking like Biden's going to get the nomination. Now, if you want to talk about what Biden, talk about those policy issues, those are things that I think are worth diving into. But frankly, I'm really focused right now on getting Trump out of the White House. And I think Joe Biden's the best guy for that. I don't think we need a revolution. I think we need a return to normalcy. I look around. I look at America. I think we're doing pretty damn good. I think we can do better in a lot of regards. But I look at, zoom out. I look at 50 years ago. Are we better than we were 50 years ago? Yeah, we are. I think in almost every regard. Do we got some problems we got to deal with? Absolutely. But we don't need a revolution. We don't. We have a system that's been working, since 1776 and working pretty damn well. And it's got problems, but shit. Let's keep it going. Also quickly, you got to shout out. Okay, 250th anniversary of the Boston Massacre. 5 people died. I got to call this out. I think this was on March 5th. Shit, I should know this. This was last week, but it's been 250 years since that. Some say I think it was the start of Revolutionary War. I just got to call this out. 2 things I didn't know. One, the first guy who died, I believe he died. Yeah, Crispus Attucks. He was half black, half Native American. Some say he was the first one to die in the Revolutionary War, which I did not know. I think it's also called Crispus Attucks Day. Also, U.S. President John Adams. 6 of the soldiers were acquitted who fired on these 5 people. The other 2 were convicted of manslaughter and given reduced sentences. So imagine that, a level-headed John Adams being like, yo, people would have loved for these guys to get thrown out. But he didn't. I didn't know that. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So God bless Samuel Adams and all those, all those early on in our great nation's history. Just had to call that out. It's legendary. Also Bureau of Labor Statistics, with the COVID-19 stuff. So unemployment, little has changed unemployment rate in February. I think there's a delay on these labor statistics, right? So maybe we'll see in a month, we'll see if this has changed. But the unemployment rate is at 3.5% among the major worker groups. Oh, yeah, this was interesting. The unemployment rate for Asians declined to 2.5% in February. So I think was that for Asian males or just Asians in general? Anyway, that was just an interesting little tidbit. If you actually look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they break it out in kind of some interesting ways. So that was an interesting thing. Okay. So we've got some no gradient tracks. So these are forward-looking statements I see in public discourse, and I track them for accuracy over time. So most of these are kind of on a decade time horizon, but I'm starting to track them now. And even just for the intellectual exercise of looking at these forward-looking statements and then having conversations around them. I think it's a lot easier to have conversations around statements about the future because at least people are putting their foot in the sand, drawing a line in the sand, because it's easier to have conversations about solid things. So if you're doing it to be a troll, then yeah, like this guy. Okay, so I have 3 statements that I'm tracking right now. So there's this Twitter account called, it's got like 180,000 Twitter followers. It's called Comfortably Smug. Now you may say, why am I quoting like a troll Twitter account? If you got a lot of followers, it's like, it's something worth it. It's public discourse. Like it or not, people are listening to what this person said. So this guy said, or girl, it's a troll account, who knows. While technically elder abuse, it's going to be amazing dismantling Joe Biden and watching Trump stomp the shit out of him for 6 months. Imagine what the Bernie bros will be like after Biden loses. First of all, I think Bernie would lose to Trump as well. Another thing the economists actually point out was there's a lot of shit. Bernie's pulling okay against Trump right now, but we ain't even seen the attack ads on Bernie. Once those come out, we pretty much know everything about Trump, right? Bernie, there's some shit that's going to hit the fan. Specifically, some of the things that he praised socialist governments in other countries, oppressive socialist governments. That shit, Trump would throw $1 billion of ads at that. Game over. Anyway, so this guy said Biden's going to lose. That's what he said. He's going to lose to Trump. We don't know who's going to be the nominee. He likely will be. Yeah, we'll see. We'll track it. I'm going to tweet at this motherfucker, and we'll see. We'll see if he's right. And come November, what is that? 2021? No, 2020. Yeah, November 2020. Okay, so here's one by Peter Zeihan. We already talked a little about him, but here's a forward-looking statement from Disunited Nations. That's the book. I said it came out. I recommend it. It's a fun read. Just read it. It's fun. So far, it's fun. Okay. Without the global security the Americans guaranteed, global trade and global energy flows cannot continue. 7 decades worth of global industrialization and modernization are not simply at risk. The very pillars of civilization are cracking. It'll be less like the messiness of the early 2000s or the raw potential of the 1950s, and more a disastrous combination of the battle royales and displacements of the 1870s against the economic backdrop of the 1930s. We should be worried about Saudi Arabia, not Iran. We should be thinking about how to remedy mass starvation in China, not counter its economic and military clout. The United States will retain by far more power than any other player, past or present. It's important to understand both domestic limitations on America's capacity as well as the sorts of issues and allies they will still care about. He said a lot. So he's I call him Chicken Little sometimes. He's saying shit's gonna hit the fan, and maybe it will, dude. I don't know, but I don't think it will. That's where I stand. But it's still really interesting because a lot of the stuff, what he's saying, it's grounded in something, right? So that's why I think it's fun to read him, because it's not as if it's coming out of nowhere. Does China import a shit ton of oil? Does it rely on exports, a shit ton of exports for energy and food more than the U.S. does? Absolutely. Is its currency, does it have capital controls on its people? Absolutely. These are facts. Now, he extrapolates a lot from these facts, but we can still learn something from the facts. So that's an interesting one. Okay. So he has another forward-looking statement. Simply put, when the China bubble breaks, it will take every sector down at once, including the one that grows the food. So he thinks when shit hits the fan, there will be mass starvation. That's a hell of a thing to think about in 2020, that there will be mass starvation in a modern first world country. That's crazy. Shit, we'll see if he's right. That's why I'm tracking it. I don't know. Okay, we're just going to close out with something real quick here. So I saw this quote. Of course, I retweeted it. So anybody who doesn't change their mind a lot is dramatically underestimating the complexity of the world we live in. So this is a closing thought. If you look at the last, you look at your last year, last couple years, and you haven't changed your mind about anything, you got that's a red flag. Regardless of the fact that it's a complex world we live in, changing your mind is actually a good thing, and admitting you're wrong is actually a good thing. It's how people learn, and giving people space to be wrong is a good thing. I think we have a culture right now where, especially when it comes socially, if you feel a certain way about something, take an older person. And gay people, for example. I think we have a culture where, someone that grew up in the 20s, and they might not understand they might not understand homosexuality because they didn't grow up with it, and they're old now. They might not understand it. I think people come down too hard on people like that. Not even just homosexual. I'm saying anything in general. Yes, are they wrong? Should homosexuality, is that totally cool? Is it all good? Yes, of course. But do we need to absolutely obliterate someone and cancel someone when they're just trying to get a grip on the changing world? No, I think we need to give space for people to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. I've been wrong on things. You've been wrong on things. This is how the world works. This is how we learn. We're all in this together, okay? And screaming at people also doesn't get them to change their mind too. So even if you actually want to get someone to change their mind, especially on social issues, you don't scream at them. That's I think the first rule of the playbook. If anything, that's going to make them more defensive and make them double down. You have a conversation with them. You say, "Why do you think that?" You sit them down. That's what you do. You chip away at it. I do this with. I love talking to Trump supporters. Actually, you actually run into a decent amount. You kind of tease them out, like, and they're like, yeah, well, I think that, and a lot of them aren't like, oh, I love Trump. They're like, they're not rabid about it. They're just like, I think he's jackass, but he's good for the business or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, anytime I disagree with that. Of course, I don't think he's good overall. But anytime I'm trying to convince someone of anything, I just try to chip away. You know what I mean? And I think you should do the same thing. Don't try to get someone to completely admit they're wrong, because no one's going to do that. You just try to present them with some information on why maybe they should think about something differently. Don't try to bitch slap them and tell them, bark at their face. So change your mind is a good thing. There are probably many things that I've said in the last hour and a half that I will change my mind on. Within the next decade. You know what I mean? That's a natural thing. And guess what? I'll be on record and you can point to this and say, wow, you're an idiot that you said that. Of course. I'm going to be wrong on some things. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out. But I will tell you, what I do promise you is I'm not trolling, and I promise you I'm giving my best, put my best foot forward in terms of what I think of the issues, and I'm not just saying things when I haven't done research and read about them for, a decent chunk of time, not just read one headline and think, oh, well, this is the new problem. That much I do promise you. So yeah, be okay with changing your mind. Not just socially, but anything. Be okay with changing. It's a hell of a world we live in. Like, no one has all the answers. You got to fail fast. If something's wrong, okay, say, boom, I was wrong. This is what I love about the predictions at No Gradient. First and foremost, first thing you see on the website basically is, we make predictions, 33% hit rate. What does that tell you? Wow, that's a fail. That's an F. Sure. Yeah, predictions are hard. But I'm being upfront. I'm being honest. That is the goal. Okay, that wraps up Shoot from the Hip number 3. Okay. Again, if you want me to cover something specific, I would really appreciate, shout out the podcast on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. Post this on Reddit. I posted. It's me posting it, though it'll get removed because I'm shilling my own stuff. Would really appreciate you sharing this with friends, even just passing it along, be like, yo, this is my homie, or this is someone I listen to. Share it out, please. Would really appreciate that. I think I'm settling on a model here. Maybe doing this podcast once every 2 weeks, maybe once a week. We're still trying to figure it out. Also, if you want to help out with the project, it's more than a project at this point. Looking for people to help out. It's maybe a few hours a week. Help out with the newsletter, and also other things. Reach out, dick@nogradient.com. Again, follow on Twitter, Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. Also, this is on YouTube. I published a video on YouTube. That's why I'll reference things and look around and say, oh, look, there's a dog or birds. Yeah, I'm not just talking to myself. I am talking to myself. Let's call it what it is. But I'm saying because there's a video portion of this as well. So if you want, you watch the video, and I think it's cool. I basically just sit outside, hang out, be myself. It's chill. Damn, I don't want to go. This is having a lot of fun. Okay, what else? We're good to go. I'll get the show notes going. I'm going to get the audio version of this out before the YouTube version. Have a great week. Wash your hands. Everything's good. We're all good. Invest in yourself. Read, relax. We're all good. Say hello. Random acts of kindness. Okay, now I'm just selling out. Now I'm just dragging out. Okay. This has been Dick Lucas with Shooting from the Hip number 3. Thank you so much. You my Chick-fil-A shit with the lemonade shit. You my Chick-fil-A.